Hello and welcome to another video on technical specification packs. Now, I'm showing lots and lots of examples here because it's important that you see the variety that might be on offer. This is another example by our wonderful Bethan Jones, and I've shown a couple of hers, and I've got a couple more to show. But she's designed quite varied aesthetics in her time at USW. So Beth is currently out in the industry, learning some amazing things. She's between her second and third year of the course, and taking a year out to work industry, which is something that we do a lot on our course. Okay, so let's take a look. So this is a garment produced for Innovations 2. You don't need to know any of the rest of that information, but it's a module that looks at future production techniques. So just to give you an idea of what's happening here. All right, so Beth's designed this tech pack to look a little different to the other ones that she's produced, which is really positive to see her. This is something she did in the second year of the course, to see her growing as a designer. And it starts with a photograph of the finished garment. In this case, it was a tile, but we can see here that it's quite a difficult garment to render in a technical drawing. Let's take a look. So we've got Bethan Jones here doing invisible garments, is what she's calling it. And it's an invisible jacket, BAJ. So that's probably her initials, 03, and it's a one size garment. So let's take a look here. So we've got, oops. So let's take a look here. So we can see she's rendered this with two different weighted lines. So we have a thin line, which is going to represent the outside of the garment, and then a thicker line, which represents these channels on the inside of the garment. Let's get right into it. Now, probably what I'd recommend is that these are drawn as channels, or maybe you'd have a close-up and indicate that they are, in fact, channels. We take a look here. We've got all the correct measurements and her visible stitching. We've got the pattern here created. This is actually laser cut, I think, at the back of the garment. Now, what I'd recommend is, of course, that the back of the garment is drawn so we can understand that it is three-dimensional. Although that can get confusing the more lines you produce. But if we take a look at the back view, that's what we've got here, we can see that actually that's what she's done. So she's drawn the top stitching, but also drawn the transparency here, although we can't see these kind of the front of this little kind of hood piece. Now, what Beth's done, because she's crafty, is include, is included Now, what Beth's done here, because she's crafty, is included a side view. This is something I'd really recommend, particularly if you're creating very voluminous garments. So that the sample machinist, the pattern cutter, can see how these garments work. So what she's also done is not only created her letters, but for some of them, things that are slightly more tricky, included descriptions of what they are. Okay. And what she's done then as well is include a back and front drawing of her understructure. Now, it'll be interesting to see how that understructure is actually produced, but it gives the pattern cutter and the sample machinist a really clear idea of how the whole thing works together. So a great idea, great measurements for us to be able to see how the garment's produced. And then including a technical drawing of the voile jacket, so the over structure without the structural underneath, so we can see each bit of the jacket and how it's produced. And you can see, of course, she's drawn the back of the neck in here, although there is a seam down there, so I'd probably want to draw that in to make sure we have all of that. Let's take a look at her fabric specifications. We have voile, which of course is our name, then the fiber content, meterages, etc., where she's purchased it from, how much she's purchased it for. Okay, the colors available. Okay, I mean, I'm not 100% sure about that, but it's a very, very common fabric. Okay, so this is polyurethane. Okay, she's got some properties here. Resistance to alcohol, that's pretty good, I suppose. Okay, high impact strength. I think from this, the polyurethane is used to create her understructure. So it looks like a polyurethane style tubing. Yes, her diameter, different widths. She used 12 meters of it. Okay, and she bought it from a hardware shop, B&Q. All right. So let's see what she's going to do. Cut out all polytubing to size, and then, okay, directions in lay plan. Cut all wire inserts. Right, so that if there's a wire inserted into the polyethylene tube, then we'd probably want a specification sheet on that so we know what gauge wire in order to use. So again, Beth's broken down her processes by subheading, which is a really good idea. So we've got our prep, we've got our understructure, what else have we got? Outer structure, and even that's broken down a bit more. Our bodice. Okay, and then trim. All right, let's take a look at our lay plan. So this is a folded fabric. Okay, so this is something I'd probably think about. So a couple of things here. Looking at whole width of fabric is 150 centimeters. Now for your lay plan, what I'd suggest is you draw a full lay plan, not a folded lay plan, but at least she's indicated what we have here. So we're looking at 1.5 by 3 meters, some big sleeves there, and she's indicated here which pattern piece goes with which drawing on the lay plan. Now, this is a really smart thing. You can see the difference between this and Beth's last tech pack is that she's gained from her feedback and included a lot more information. Okay, this looks interesting. So this is Beth's instructions on how to produce the understructure, and she's included a IKEA style assembly, which will give us a really clear idea. All right, so let's take a look. If we've got rings, so we probably should see a fabric spec sheet on the rings, or at least a notions, maybe not fabrics, but at least notions. Again, structural tubes, if they're different to the connecting tubes, top and bottom back panels. Okay, so for those as well. So each one of these should have a different, if they're different things, so if the rings are different, if the tubes are all different sizes, and certainly for the 3D printed connectors, so there's 3D printing there, we should have that as well. Okay, is that digital hood pattern? Okay, again, not really a lay plan. Where did this come from? Let's take a look. Is there, what's C? Sleeve, channel, back bodice, front bodice. So we don't actually have a hood here, so I would probably suggest that the hood is either made of a different fabric or made of the same fabric but laser cut, in which case we should have a different lay plan for it. Okay. What she's done, which is something that I would recommend as well, is created a quality control checklist to make sure that the sample that she's produced, the sample that she's sending off, is of a quality that she can assess it when it gets back to make sure it's the same quality. Baby lock on raw edges. Oh, I see. So that's a rolled hem, perhaps a rolled edge, or a rolled lock. Lots of different things. It's a very thin overlocking. So someone's assessed this for her. Very nice. Okay. So a really clear tech pack. A big step up for Beth. Oh, we've got a lot more. There we go. This is what we want. So this is another piece of information. That's a great idea. Oh, gee, that was very recently. By another student, Georgia. Well done. Okay. So finished garment measured against the final pattern. So we can see our pattern measurements. Oh dear, the differences and the finished garment. So they're really key things to look at. So sometimes those measurements don't make a huge difference, but sometimes they very much do make a big difference. They make a difference to a size. So 2.3 centimeters is about half a size. And 2.8 obviously is a bit more than that. So the difference between one size and the next can be quite significant. So we're saying 1 centimeter tolerance, then these are all out of tolerance. Mostly out of tolerance anyway. So we'll probably need redoing. Now, it's a difficult garment, so that's probably where it comes from. A wonderful tech pack. Thank you very much, Beth. Cheers.